We'll be starting things off on Falcon's map pick, which is Cruel, Gear 3 map made by Zepna and by Alicat. Saw it a few times yesterday. Had some very close rounds and some good times. WR is a 0.39 by Opal. Jazz is third on the map with a 0.440. And we see Falcon. Wait, hold up. Right, I think it's it's displayed someone's name twice, so I'm guessing that Falcon. Ah, he's Aki has a 0.677. Right, he's in 10th. It's tripping for a second. Alright, so we're live after a short warm-up. Best of 3 on maps. First to 7 on points takes the map. And we're into round 1. Jazz with a slightly better start, about a 10th and a half ahead of Falcon, going into the tight downhill slide. Both players driving clean lines. Jazz really getting close to the inside wall. Will benefit him in this next section. But still, Falcon's just always there, looking for an opportunity to try and take the round away from Jazz. But with the clean driving, Jazz is capable of closing out round 1, putting himself in the lead. Jazz, one of the heavy favourites in this competition to try and take the title for the first season of the Summit League. So it'd be a very formidable opponent for Falcon to take on so early into the competition. So we see Jazz again risking that inside line, pushing out a few tenths of an advantage, trying to snowball it to the end of the map. And the gap this time sitting at almost half a second, it seems. It's going to be a difficult one for Falcon to close. He goes for a tighter line, but it won't be enough. Jazz with another 41.9 will take round 2. Bit of a worse shot from Jazz this time round. He is more inside to the second slide, but it's only just managing to catch. But Falcon with a bit more exit speed to that slide will be challenging Jazz for the rest of this map. Jazz gets a really nice inside line. Falcon goes a bit wider for a bit more exit speed, but doesn't seem to pay off as he goes a bit too close to the apex on the second last turn. And Jazz now pushing the advantage into the last slide. We'll get the round win with another 0.9. Very consistent driving. Slight difference in lines going into this round. Falcon opting for a higher setup, whereas Jazz pushing the inside and going slightly wide, but keeps it on the road and is about a couple tenths ahead of the Canadian, who is closing the gap quite quickly. He's actually ahead of Jazz going into the penultimate slide, hoping for a better exit, but Jazz seems to get it. Tighter from Falcon, good SD from both players, but not quite enough for the round win. It's a better showing from Falcon in that round, pushing Jazz a little bit, requiring him to drive a very clean time. But this is Falcon's map pick. It's where they feel most comfortable. Or where they think Jazz is weakest, but so far Jazz is not showing many signs of weakness at all. Just pushing that turn with about a tenth of a lead. He's a bit more inside into this second last slide, which will allow Falcon to get a bit closer, but goes slightly too close to the wall and will leave Jazz in the lead with a tenth and a half. Another 0.8 from Jazz, just consistently driving good enough times for the round win. And that's 5-0 in favor of Jazz. Really good first slide by Falcon. Gets a bit of an advantage on Jazz, who goes lower earlier. Very close round so far. Falcon goes a bit wider away from the apex, allows Jazz to go through. But Jazz is really far inside. He manages to keep it on the road, but has less speed than Falcon going into the penultimate slide. Falcon not getting as good of an apex though will allow Jazz back into the fight. And it'll come down to the last slide, who can get the SD exit slightly cleaner. And it'll be Jazz by 14 thousandths of a second, taking the round. And if you're Falcon, I mean, you're driving clean lines and you're just almost there, but just can't make it last all the way to the finish line, unfortunately. This round, very close starts from both players. Canadian going for a line similar to what Simon did in the matches yesterday. It looks like Jazz might have touched an apex. He's on a bit of an awkward line. And there's about a quarter of a second behind the Canadian player. That gap grows out to probably closer to half a second now, and Falcon just needs to remain calm, drive it into the finish, not make a silly mistake on the last turn, and will do so, taking a point back and eating into the large lead that Jazz has created for himself. 6-1. Second chance at closing out the map for Jazz, if he can win one more round. But we see Falcon, although he had a better start, he had a bit of an awkward line. Will drop back a couple of tenths. We need some really good driving to close this one. Jazz, with going a bit offline, will lose a few tenths. Falcon pushing, gets a really nice apex, keeps it tighter the whole way round. Jazz will have slightly more exit speed, Falcon a more inside line. And going into the finish, Falcon just denied by Jazz by 9 thousandths of a second. 7-1 in favour of Jazz. 2 rounds being under 15 thousandths decided, both just in the favour of the Australian. Now, on to Okra, the map by Quat and by Doogie. So I have not had the pleasure of casting so far this tournament. A mixed gear map. Which is Jazz's map pick for this match. Okay, we have technical difficulties on the side of Falcon's game has crashed, unfortunately, but it's not rage quit. He did finish the last round. We'll leave Jazz sitting to his own devices. Turns out that, yeah, Opal does not have the biggest connection problems in this tournament so far. See if Falcon wants the warm-up round. DNF and live it is. On to the first round of Okra. Slightly different lines in the start. Falcon going a little bit wider, carrying more speed than Jazz. But only a couple of tenths in it so far. The gap grows to a quarter of a second. Jazz pushing a tighter apex and unfortunately forcing the mistake from Falcon, who slides out in the gear 4 section. It's the last couple of slides. Jazz with a few seconds in hand will just be able to drive it cleanly into the finish line. I mean, that almost cost Jazz the round. If he had to respawn that would have been Falcon's round. So, gotta just take the advantages when you can. Falcon unfortunately losing the gear. Will have a mountain to climb to try and catch Jazz from this point on. Jazz with a second in hand so far. And we can see the pace difference now between these two players. Going into the last turn, Jazz this time opting not to slide out and will drive a 49.2. Into the next round. Jazz with a better start. About 0.3 of a second. Back to Falcon. Just keeping the gap close to the half-second mark. Forces Jazz to just drive clean lines. But Jazz is going quite wide. will get exit speed into the last turn. And it will be enough with another 49.2 to close it out. On to round 4. WR is a 0.8, actually a 48.8. So very impressive to see a couple of 49.2s coming out. Jazz actually with the WR. We see Falcon with a 49.3 as a PB. This time the gap is significantly closer. Falcon going tighter. Jazz is extremely wide, somehow stays on the road and will convert the round, but yeah, that's probably not the optimal line. (4-0) to Jazz on his map pick. It will require an unreal performance from Falcon to try and eat into this gap. But Jazz with a really unfortunate start mistake there will cost him many seconds and will open the door for Falcon to try and take the first round win. He has a huge gap actually. Just has to drive it clean into the finish line and claim the round. So far, seems to be doing just that. Four to 1 after this round. It's a closer gap to make up than what the last map was. So we'll see if Falcon can continue this trend of getting some more round wins and trying to make the match a little bit closer. Though with Jazz's pace and the difference in PBs, it'll be a very tall order. Ooh, Falcon pushing but crashing the apex. Will leave Jazz out by himself, a couple of seconds ahead, and it's looking like the 5th round win for Jazz here. Jazz with a very uncharacteristic slide out has just gifted the round to Falcon. I mean, it's very uncharacteristic from the Australian. It's usually extremely consistent and drives copy-paste lines, it seems, at times. But on this map, he's made a couple of mistakes, especially that round 1 mistake. He did end up winning the round, but it was very close, closer than it needed to be. Falcon's doing what he needs to do, just staying in the same postcode as Jazz for when Jazz makes a mistake and just capitalizing on it and gets the 2nd round win. This round though, it's closer between the 2 players, less than a 10th so far. Falcon in the lead going into the gear 4 section. Jazz very inside, keeps it out of the wall. He gets a better SD exit, will snowball some speed going into the last section of the map. Falcon, 0.3 to make up, risks the inside line, has a bit more speed, closes the gap by a 10th, but it will not be enough. 2 points away from winning the match overall. Both players with similar starts, less than a tenth in it. Falcon going wide earlier on gives Jazz a few more tenths of an advantage. And with an awkward gear up, they'll escalate to half a second. And missing the exit SD will cost a lot of time. It's a case of if Jazz can keep it on the road, but it seems to be working so far, and he drives a 49.1, which is a respectable time. It's time-wise, it's early for Falcon, late for Jazz. Pretty awkward scheduling. And this is match point in favour of Jazz. Falcon needs to pull out something really special here, but unfortunately will clip the apex of the turn, drop the gear, and it'll be close to a second, the advantage that Jazz has over his competitor. Jazz barely missing the wall is driving some pretty crazy lines for having such a lead. Gets a really nice slide exit, gains an extra tenth or so on the competition. And will close out the match. 2-0 on map wins and 14-3 on round wins. Which is a pretty ideal way for Jazz to begin his GSL